let's move on to Cody Rhodes, who just won the TNT championship from Sammy Guevara in AEW. When did you first meet Cody? Because I remember Cody being around WCW with his dad way back when.
No, I met Cody with I used to travel with Reed for amateur wrestling. And Cody was a Georgia state champion. But this is when they were both like younger. I think Cody is 3 years older or 2 years. They never wrestled each other. That's funny because I was dying for Cody and Reed to work back then, as were Dusty and I. But they were an age bracket apart where I couldn't even bump him up high enough. But I mean, Cody's just, he's a diamond, man, for me. I think the world of the kid. He's done all this on his own, had the balls to step away from it, challenge it, married a beautiful girl, Brandy, who supports him. And they, I talk to Michelle a lot, not a lot, but once a month I'll text Michelle, man, the kid is golden. So, it's kind of like, no, and I understand it, but I mean, I can't figure out how AEW got the Owen Hart Memorial Tournament when I appreciate Tony for doing it, but that's something that if the company feels that strongly about Brett and Owen, that's something that I wish the WWE had jumped on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but they didn't and weren't going to because of their relationship with Owen's family over the lawsuit.
See, I didn't know that. So that,
yeah.
Well, I'm proud of Tony for doing it because I never knew Owen that well, but he certainly is very respected by so many people, and I never got to know him. I never got to wrestle with him. So, but I think any time that, they had the Dusty Rhodes Memorial, some kind of a tournament.
They had a tag team tournament, NXT.
At NXT, yeah.
Right.
So I mean, eventually one day I would bump that up to a main roster a show because Dusty's a character and a name that'll never be forgotten, always be remembered, and there's not going to be another Dusty Rhodes.
Well, that said, I was always disappointed that Cody never got the opportunity I felt he deserved in WWE. And I didn't like him as Stardust.
That's why he left.
Well, I know. I didn't like him as Stardust. I liked him when he was in that Legacy thing with Randy Orton and with Teddy DiBiase's kid. But yeah, I give him credit. Like you said, he went against the machine.
Yep.
He left and created his own machine.
Yep.
And let's be honest, Tony Khan provides the money, and there were a lot of other influences like Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks. We could go down the list. But Cody Rhodes is the primary reason for AEW's existence. There's no doubt about that. He pushed the button first, pushed it hardest, and he got things done.
That's the way I understand it, yes. Because he had his own little promotion going, I think, before Tony came in. So,
well, yeah, he did that. He did that pay-per-view, that All In.
Yeah, and that's what I think it started Tony. And I don't know the intricacies of all that, but hey, I'm a big fan of Cody Rhodes. He knows that I text him all the time. So,
well, I think the big thing for Cody was when he first left WWE, he went to Ring of Honor, which now looks like it's going to be belly up or in a very limited capacity moving forward. But he went to Ring of Honor, and he used the creative freedom there to reinvent himself and to help others reinvent themselves. And honestly, they picked up a lot of what Ring of Honor was doing with the Bucks, with Bullet Club, with Hangman Page, and just moved it right over to AEW. And I don't fault Ring of Honor for letting those guys go. What was going to happen was going to happen. But that's where it all started to happen. Cody Rhodes in Ring of Honor. Yeah,
I didn't see that. So I don't know how it evolved, but wherever it evolved and however it evolved, it worked. And Cody is once again put himself in a very special place.
Now, what do you like about Cody talent-wise? What makes him, a top performer?
Well, I tell you what, when he did the moonsault off the cage with WWE, I looked at him in a whole different light. I didn't realize how athletic it was. He's one of these kids that can do anything. And, just being so close to his dad, to see those boys, both of them be so successful, and even at different ages and different time frames. Every time you see a second generation kid do well, you can't be proud enough of him, especially if you're the son of the legendary Dusty Rhodes.
Well, in the match that Cody had with Dustin, remember that in AEW on pay-per-view,
Yes.
brother versus brother?
Yes.
That was phenomenal. And the
Yep.
way they did the angle leading up in the promos,
Yep.
it's one of the very few times brother versus brother worked. The only times that brother versus brother worked, to my mind, were Rhodes versus Rhodes and Hardy versus Hardy.
And Funk versus Funk.
Oh, Nate, that's even before my time, believe it or not.
I don't know if they did it. I'm making a joke, but
I'm not sure they did.
I don't think they did it. But that would have been classic.
Well,
No, but I tell you, no, I totally agree. I saw all those matches, and I think, it just Cody and Dustin put on a clinic that night, and I just, like I say, I'm so proud of both of them. It's very hard. You can imagine how hard it is to be a second generation wrestler when your last name is Rhodes, and the pressure that's on you, and it's all the comparison. I happen to be experiencing, I've had to experience the heartache personally that my daughter went through because people just said she's Ric Flair's daughter, which is the biggest crock of shit in the world. She's the greatest because she's the greatest, and it surpassed me a long time ago. So
now, here's a prediction I'm going to make. I think I mentioned this on a previous podcast. I think the first guy to go from AEW to WWE will be Cody Rhodes. And I have no factual basis for that. I don't know his contract status. I just have that feeling. I don't know why. I just have that feeling. And I got to tell you, there are people in that locker room that have that feeling too.
it's possible. I know they'd take him back. I'm sure they would. Hey, the name RHODES is going to be in this business until the day that the business drops off the face of this earth. And if they can bring Cody Rhodes back in, it would be a feather in their hat. It would that would speak volumes on Vince it would speak volumes for Vince to change his mind about something, because he can have a frame of mind where he goes, I'm not going to go back there. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to revisit it. And then someone can tap on the shoulder and say, hey, it's Cody Rhodes. You know what I mean? So,
well, like I said, I'm not putting a timetable on it, but it would not surprise me. But I got to tell you, I don't know if I'd want to be the first guy to go from AEW to WWE, because you're going to get a paycheck, but you might get buried too.
I think Cody's smart enough to decipher that. I think you got to make Cody's growing up 20 years in 5 years. In terms of smarts, logistics, knowing how to promote himself, he wouldn't walk in there blindsided.
Yep, I agree with that. And Nate, that's what makes your first run in WWE incredible. Because if anybody would figure to get buried upon entry in WWE, it'd be you. You were the standard bearer for the other guys, for the competition. But instead, I mean, give Vince credit. He saw you for what you were and let you take it to the top there, too.
Mark, I say this very humbly. I was too good to be buried.
Oh, you don't have to tell me. I totally agree. But that hasn't...
Who was going to bury me?
You make a compelling argument.
I left the people behind me that could bury me.
Good point. Good point. You could have got buried any worse in the new place than you had been at the old place.
Are you kidding? I got to hang out with some of the greatest people. As I say, I got to wrestle Hogan. I got to wrestle Randy. I got to wrestle Bret Hart. I got to wrestle The Undertaker. Are you kidding me? It was the greatest year and a half, the most fun I ever had. And I made the biggest mistake I ever made was going back.
Now, before we wrap this